Thank you. Also tonight, a first alert update on the Green Bay Area Public School Board vote. It's centered on a major proposal to close schools, redraw boundary lines in order to make up for a large budget deficit. There had been pushback, though, from people who felt there wasn't adequate explanation or consideration for diverse families. Samantha Cavalli joins us in the studio with new information tonight. Samantha.
Well, Cammie, the meeting went on for almost 4 hours regarding the facility master's plan put forth by the task force 1 month ago. The board was presented with 4 resolutions that were created. 3 out of the 4 were voted on tonight and passed unanimously. The first was an action required to prepare a proposed capital referendum question and propose it by November 1st. It would surround the discussion of building a new elementary school on the site of Kennedy, and upon completion would then enable the decision to consolidate West Side schools. It would also implement recommended security upgrades to some of the schools. The second resolution was discussing the proposal of the community impact of repurposing 4K through 8 schools. A third party will be conducted to study the community impact of the school closures. There will also be a task force created to evaluate the study and then to adjust the boundaries. The third was to have the district initiate the planning of having Weequahic School close and explore the option of moving those students to Red Smith Community School and present a plan by November 1st. Board President Laura McCoy said this was not an easy decision to make and thanked the Board of Education.
And then I appreciate my fellow board members as we guide our community, and most specifically our children, through these needed changes. None of us wanted to be here. None of us.
Well, now there was a resolution presented about initiating the planning to potentially close Tank Elementary, but that has been tabled. Bill?